Hi, everybody. I'm Leslie here with Emily. We are from Accelerate America, and we have two amazing ladies joining us today from Morgan Stanley, Janet and Phyllis. And we are going to be discussing cash management and lending for small businesses. They are a wealth of information on this, and we can't wait to have them share what they know with you guys right now. We're going to pick their brains. So Janet, I would just like to dive in and get started. Everybody's still recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. We're still in the pandemic. What can businesses do right now if they're still in need of financing?
Well, that's a great question. There's many things. Obviously, there's more monies. We're still in the midst of this, and we've already gone through some of everyone's kind of got through the process and applications, and more than 50% of all businesses have applied for funding.
Wow.
Just to give you some perspective.
Of all businesses.
Of all
businesses.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is wild.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, over 92% of the executives surveyed said that their businesses had been negatively impacted from COVID.
Sure.
So this has been monumental,
Right.
of course, as everyone says, unprecedented
Right.
in our lifetime. So many companies, as we know, they said over 50% have already got funding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then everybody's saying, well, what's coming next?
Mm-hmm.
So there's many things from a government standpoint going on. From that perspective, of course, those programs go through the SBA.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at Morgan Stanley, we have partners that specialize in this and help businesses. But what can businesses do right now, today, for funding? Well, they can not only utilize credit cards, they can utilize the SBA. They can utilize grants. Now, there's many more types of private funding coming out. Many businesses are now on TV, on the analyst shows all the time, talking about how they're setting aside additional resources for small businesses. So right now it's actually expanding, and you have to kind of open your eyes and realize that everybody's pitching in and everybody wants to help get more money to those that need it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's nice to see that. I think that before this happened, I mean, we know small businesses are the heartbeat of our economies and our communities. And I just think it's just like such an emotional, like wonderful thing to have seen how people are coming together to help small businesses, in any different way that they possibly can. I think we were just even discussing before this meeting how there was a car wash or like a car mechanic place, and during COVID, they purchased gift cards from other local businesses, and people that would come in and get service, they would like give them like a gift card to another local business, just even things like that. And that's, there's just so many different levels to like, we have our funding finder tool that you put in your business's zip code, and it automatically pulls all the loans and grants that are available to your business in the area as well as nationwide. And every day I get alerts, and it's every day there are new grants, like grants. Like I'm always joking with like Emily and Marina, who are updating the database, and like grants. Like it just doesn't show signs of stopping. And I just think that's great. And there is opportunity and money and help available for small businesses through the different arenas still. So it's just been a really interesting thing to watch.
I think one of the hardest things is for business owners, first of all, they're always time challenged because this is all in addition to what they're used to doing. So now they've got many more additional resources. So Phyllis and I really try to educate our clients on the value of having professional team around you. And financial advisors like ourselves, Morgan Stanley is a great resource so that you're not in this alone. You have someone to pick up the phone or send a message to that says, hey, I'm looking at this. I need X amount of dollars. And what are your thoughts, or what options do I actually have, and what would make sense? And I think that that's taking a step back and saying, hey, let's strategize so that we have not only understand what solutions are available, but partnering that up with your business so that you understand what's the best solution for you, because it all depends on your circumstances and it's very personal.
Right. Totally. I think you said like business owners are always strapped for time. It's so true. We always say like people go into business because they have a love for baking cupcakes or tech. They don't go in because they love how to do payroll and how to do finances and how to do all this stuff. And so they're already like strapped. And now you have a pandemic on top of it that they have to navigate and get through. So I just think it's so great that they can connect, and Morgan Stanley is there and is somebody that they can connect with outside of a pandemic and get that settled and like organized and managed for their business, because any sort of help to alleviate some of the like the lift for the small business owners, I think is just incredible. It's a game changer for sure.
I think that,
well, and part of this, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think with all the uncertainties that, like you said, already exist for small businesses, pre all of the COVID-19, just managing your receivables. How do you match your cash flow up with your receivables? And now you have COVID and people are paying slower.
Right.
You have less receivables. So Morgan Stanley, even prior to all of this, that's part of the process, is just looking at your needs and setting up, maybe it's a line of credit that does fund those liquidity needs when you get in a pinch. But now, especially, even though there's the small business loans, the payment protection loans, the grants, at some point that will go away. And so we do want to remind businesses that when that does go away, this is the time now more than ever to get yourself positioned so that when this does happen, you already have a vehicle in place. And then, like I said, a line of credit or a loan or, something that you can access immediately before you have to panic and wait for that next round. So we think this is a good time to take a financial checkup on your business. And just make sure you're ready for the next one that happens.
Right.
Tell us about that financial checkup. What would be the things that a business owner would be looking into to ensure they are ready for something like this, or just to ensure cash flow, is maintained?
So, when we sit down and coach and guide businesses, we do look at their, how much they're keeping in a reserve account. And if they don't have access to a lot of funds, then it's putting into place, Janet mentioned, like a credit card or a line of credit. Prior to doing what I do now, I used to be a commercial loan officer. And I actually also ran the cash management area for a large bank. And so we look at what can we do based on what the business has today and build a plan around it. So there is always something available. So that financial checkup is just, let's take a look at your financial situation today. Let's look at your assets. Let's look at inventory. Let's look at your receivables. Every company has, like, maybe our receivables pay off on average 35 days. Some are 90 days. We look at what that time frame is for each business, and then we match a vehicle, an investment vehicle, to help fund that difference. And that line of credit can be secured in many different ways that people aren't aware of. So, like I said, the financial checkup comes on the business side as well as the personal side too. But it is a good time because we are living in this environment right now, and for the foreseeable future, we don't see this changing.
Right.
Well, I also wanted to add to that. I have been an entrepreneur. I've owned my own business before, and one of the things that I always said was, it doesn't matter how much money you have, it only matters how you manage it that counts. And so we're talking about, and to be honest, I tell my kids that too, and I've always tried to drill
advice.
That is a
them.
life lesson.
Business advice. Yeah.
I've always said to them, because you know how they look at the other kids at school, and
Oh, sure.
you know, there's all this comparison, but I tried to teach them that cash management, it makes all the difference in the world, especially with business owners. They lose less sleep. They sleep better at night. But one of the things that goes along with that are some best practices that Phyllis was talking about. And there's some key things that I kind of learned. And one of those was, as a business, spreading out your payments so that your payables are not all paid the first of the month. You make sure that they're aligned with your cash flows, and as well as making sure that you collect your monies owed quickly. And one of the best ways to do that is to establish a credit policy and make it known, so that when these businesses, when you are extending them credit, you have a policy, a process to follow, and it makes it easy for your employees to understand what the limitations are, and that just mitigates a lot of your risk. But the other thing is that you can align your payroll cycle with your revenue stream.
Yeah.
So that if you know you're getting payments or income for your business coming in at one part of during the month, however it flows in, you can, there's many ways, as we know, timing wise, to pay employees. And so you can make that work to your advantage as well.
Right. So smart.
Yeah, that is really smart to have that, everything like that set up. So I think like what you just talked about makes a lot of sense. So tell me, you know, how having a cash management strategy like that is different than just having a bank account, right? Just kind of having money there.
Well, to start with, I think we, again, take a comprehensive look, as Phyllis was saying, understanding the business owner and his business, because if you don't understand it, you can't understand what the strategy can be. So one of my clients learned a very good lesson in cash management, because he was so afraid. He's small business, made a lot of money. That's a great thing, right? You think, oh boy. And he's so risk adverse that he kept everything in cash. Well, one day his auditor came to him and said, we have a problem here, and this should be a problem everyone has. But he had over $500,000 in cash at the bank in his checking account. Now, FDIC only insures up to $250,000. So half of his cash wasn't even insured. So he called me and he thought, well, I need some help. Now, you asked about how we're different than, let's say, a retail bank. This is exactly where that became aligned, because he thought day to day, writing checks, doing your regular kind of banking. He didn't think of Morgan Stanley. He thought of us or more longer term investment goals. So, but now he's got a problem and he calls and says, what do I do?
Right.
Well, this is where we are different than a retail bank. First of all, we are two banks. And so we can take all that cash and provide him the FDIC insurance, and he's protected. But at a higher level, he's really not utilizing his monies the best way. So that is cash management, because cash management is all about taking in your money, what you do with it, and how it goes out so that it can maximize your returns and minimize your risk. So here we have that one very big part of that is we need to minimize his risk. But in addition to that, this brings up a good point, which is he has no strategy. Right. He just has cash. So he's not earning, he's not gaining or earning any revenue on all these monies while they sit there. So they could much, much better be utilized. And in talking about that, I found out his fear, his great fear, was that most of his payments were made by insurance companies. And so he was fearful that the inconsistency of those payments. But I explained to him also that there's fair and reasonable. You can have an amount of cash that makes you comfortable, but what's reasonable and for immediate needs, and the rest of it, when you think of investments, that doesn't mean you lock it up and you never see it again. We have many, many options that are liquid, and you can have the money the same day, but it's not a savings account that don't earn any interest per se. They are actually earning you interest or dividends, depending on what it is. And it is liquid, and it can be liquidated the same day. So there's many options that I think people just don't realize are available to them.
What are some of the names of those options, Janet? Like if the business owner is listening, like, oh no, I have $300,000 in cash. I need to be doing something, or I didn't know. Like, what is something that they should be looking for or reaching out to you guys, to ladies, to like discuss?
Well, I think if they're looking at how much they have, I think they should think about what their timeline is. So is this just for fear? Because everyone has a risk tolerance, right? And that's very, very important in your strategy. But it also is important to understand your timeline and know what works. Is it a 1 week timeline, 1 day timeline, 1 year timeline? And then that would make a key decision in some of the products or options that you looked at for putting the money into. Another thing that they should look at is whether they've got on projects or innovation, expansion that's coming, and they're like, oh boy, time to grow. Well, that's definitely a major factor in watching cash management, because you will need money. So if you have these plans or projects budgeted, you want to make sure that you do have the availability of the funds.